He was a superintendent there of police, and he approached the pulpit and signaled for me to stop.
Okay.
So I stopped. Probably did a wrap up, maybe 20 seconds or so, and I handed the mic and sat down. Well, by about this time, the crowd had kind of gotten agitated. People were trying to block him from coming forward to the pulpit.
Right.
I again, turned and kind of asked a couple of guys, "What's going on? Is everything okay?"
About this time, the crowd's about 10,000 now. It's at the
Yeah,
peak.
people are standing and they're upset. Then they started lining up for prayer.
Okay.
Okay, so I came down the stairs and started praying for people, and they lined up by the hundreds. And then all of a sudden, some guy says to me, "You need to go." And I went out the side
Okay.
and out the back of the tent, and they put me in a car and started driving me around. And of course, I'm trying to find out what's going on, because at this point I still don't really know, and they're speaking Hindi. I don't understand a word of that. So they told me that they're going to take me to another hotel and that there's a problem with my visa. So we drove first into another city, stopped at some people that I knew actually from Bermuda when I pastored there for a little while, and then we went a couple more hours just outside of Kerala, and I went to a hotel. Okay, and there I remained at that hotel that night. One of the interesting things that was printed, you probably read that the police were looking for us and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Like that,
Right.
I think that's kind of embellishing,
Okay.
because I was actually at the hotel,
Right.
sitting in the lobby, eating breakfast down and lunch in the in the
So
in the
you weren't
restaurant.
that difficult to find.
No, 6'3" black guy in India. If they wanted to find me, they could have found me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but during that process, they were. I came to understand that they were actually negotiating with the police.
Okay.
They did tell me what was happening, and they were looking for me. Actually, I saw a news article, and by morning this was also on the news.
Okay.
So, after talking with them, I just said, "Look, let's go back and surrender." And so they had negotiated a surrender. We drove into the town, met a community representative who was kind of a legal person as well. And we got in the car with him, and they took me to a hotel.
Okay.
And I was there at the hotel under house arrest with 2 police officers in the room at all times. And I was there for 2 days.
Okay. Okay.
So what I was told was that there would be a hearing on Thursday, and that I'd be taken to the airport from the hearing and deported, which was okay. So at this point, I just basically told my wife that my flights have been canceled,
Okay.
and that I'm just going to be a couple of days late, and I'll let her know, when I get there, when I'm coming. So, well, as I was in that hotel, I got a couple of newspapers, and they had articles in there. So I thought that was a little much, And then, so finally the day came for me to go to trial, to the hearing, and first I had the 2 officers there.
Right.
Then 2 more came in uniform. Then there were 4 officers. So I go down the hall, and they start taking me to go to the courthouse. And when I walked down the stairs and started heading toward the lobby, there were maybe about 12 officers lined up on each side of the hallway.
Wow.
And they were blocking everyone from, entering into the little path they made.
Okay.
So I come outside, and there are reporters and cameras. And the policemen are pushing these people back. And I'm, like, why are they making this such a big deal? This is a visa violation,
Right.
So they stuffed me in the back of this Jeep, this police car, with 9 guys. They're literally sitting on top of each other and me.
Okay.
And they took me over to the courthouse. And when I got to the courthouse, there were more media there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this thing had kind of taken on a life of its own
Okay.
within the next few days.
Right. Right.
So I come into the courthouse, and of course, they're talking another language, so I'm kind of just, sitting there.
Right.
They have you stand in this area in the back while your lawyers are talking and stuff like that.
Okay.
Then they call me forward, and
They appointed counsel for you? Is that?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah. My sponsor got a lawyer for me and all
Okay.
of that. So I go up to the. So they call me toward the bench, and while I'm on my way, I can't say who it was, but he whispers in my ear and said, "Tell the judge that your chest is hurting. You're having chest pains." So I stepped forward, and he said, "Did you want to say anything?" I said, "I'm having chest pains." So I thought they were just going to send me home, and he announced that he was remanding me at the county jail for 5 days.
Wow.
So I was just shocked. Okay.
Yeah.
And of course, I come back outside, and I'm so upset. I took my coat and put it over my head because I just didn't want anyone filming me
Right.
looking that upset. So I get in the police vehicle again, and they take me to the county jail. So I get to the county jail, and that's when I started to understand why the person told me to say I had chest pains.
Okay.
So I get to the county jail, and they take all my stuff. I'd been a correctional officer before for 4 years, so I kind of knew what jail is, what to expect. But this
Right,
place was
right.
like nothing I'd ever seen.
Okay.
I'm standing in the intake area. They're taking my phone. While I was on my way in there, I was texting a few people to let them know that I'm having some
Something's
issues
going on here. Yeah.
And I told them to log on and read. And so I give them all my stuff, and I'm looking around, and while I'm standing there, they're just like mice, running,
Wow.
different, all over this place,
Wow.
And I'm like, oh gosh. So
Yeah.
I take me to the cell, and I get to the cell, and it's like about a 20 by 15 or so cell with 7 other inmates.
Okay.
They had a toilet in the back and a spigot about 3 feet off the ground that you're supposed to wash up in, and a bucket.
Wow.
No toiletries, no toilet paper, the whole,
Right. The whole.
and then they hand me a wicker mat, and the wicker mat is what I'm supposed to be sleeping on.
Right.
Okay, so
What I read was only 4 feet, and you're, like you said, 6.
exactly,
So it wasn't
and
too much for you.
yeah, so they made me take my shoes off before I went into the cell,
Right.
and there was only one guy that spoke English. So I go and I sit down, and I'm just basically being quiet. I'm just like, God, what is happening here? When you're going to get me out of this, and all that stuff. And I'm really just kind of just sitting there. And one of the guys who was a Muslim, he starts talking to me and stuff. And he asked me, where I'm from. And, they had, they had never met it. I don't think they met anybody from America. So,
Okay.
we're going back and forth, and he said, "So what are you here for?" I said, "Well, visa violation." And I said, "What about you?" He said, "Well, they say I killed somebody, so so I'm."
That's something you wanted to hear?
Yeah, exactly. I wish I would have, I should have asked him first, then I
Right.
could have beefed up my resume. So but anyway, we're there, and I reminded them as they were taking me in that my chest was hurting and I needed to see a doctor.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm in the cell probably for about an hour and a half, and they're just talking to me about what they do there. Found out that they feed the inmates rice and curry sauce. That's their meal.
Wow.
And water, And I'm supposed to be in there for 5 days. So I'm sitting on the ground, and after a while, the guard calls me to come out front. So I go out front, and the person there takes me into a room and closes the door. And he said, "Pastor," he said, "you can't stay here." He said, "I'm going to take you to see a doctor in a little while." He says, "When you get to the doctor, pass out."
Wow.
So I said, "Okay." He said, they'll take you to the hospital prison ward. He said it's bad, but it's not as bad as here. At least you'll have a bed to sleep on.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I go back, and about 45 minutes later, they call me to go to the hospital, and they come in with an ambulance. And they
Okay.
put me in the back of this ambulance, and I'm sitting there in this ambulance on the way to the hospital, and I'm like, you have all these conversations going on in your head,
Right,
and
right,
people don't
yes.
speak English,
Right,
so
right.
I'm praying and I'm saying, Lord, I ain't been in a school play. I haven't been in a church play.
Right.
And I actually prayed. I said, Lord, if there's a Denzel Washington, Brad Pitt anointing, I said, I need it today because
Yes,
I'm about to have
right.
to do some acting.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I get to the hospital, and I walk in, and by this time I'm holding my chest and, limping a little bit. And I'm trying to find a place to fall. The floor is cement.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I'm 6'3", and like this is a long way down.
Yes.
So I actually stood there for a minute, and the guard says, sit, have a seat. So when I sat down, I said, okay, now I can, do this fall. So I sat there for a minute, and when the doctor turned around,
Okay.
I rolled my eyes in the back of my head, and blam, fell to the floor on my left elbow and arm and shoulder. Actually found out that I did some nerve damage.
We tend to do that when we fake
Yeah.
COVID. You fake it, and it ends up becoming real. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So they tried to help me up, and I'm kind of bigger than them, so they are having trouble. So I act like I came to,
Yeah.
and long enough to get them in a wheelchair, and then I passed out again, and then they rolled me over to the hospital bed, and I laid there. They took my vitals, EKG. My blood pressure was up a little bit naturally,
Right.
because of what I was going through.
Wow.
And interesting thing was she came with a needle and said, I need to give you a shot. And I really think she was trying to see if she could, bluff me.
Yeah. Yes.
Because she looked me right in my eyes. And I said, well, what is it? She said, it's a shot. I said, for what? She said, for chest pain. And I looked her straight in her eyes. I stuck my arm out. I said, go ahead. Because my thinking is I'm not going back
Right. Right.
to that jail.
Right.
So they took me. So after a couple of hours, they took me from from the hospital to the hospital prison ward, which is about 2 hours away.
Okay. Now, Pastor Lee, as I said, our show goes fast.
Yeah.
And I am so thrilled that we already talked about having you back, because
Right.
there is more I want to talk about.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is really the meat of what happened.
Yeah.
And I just kind of want to talk a little bit about the aftermath and some of the experiences. Just some of the things here. The experiences nationally. I mean, was there some national impact here, either here in the States or even over in India? I mean, in terms of response and perspective.
All over the Eastern Bloc,
Right.
I was on the news.
Right.
I got a visit from the U.S. Embassy.
Now, I'm not going to get to talk about it this time. I'm glad you started, because I want
We're
the
gonna
listening
have to pick
audience
it
to
up.
be ready
We're
for
gonna
this.
have to pick
Okay.
it
But
up.
we're going to be back with
Thursday
you,
after
and
next.
we got to make some. Make sure your calendar's clear, because
Sure.
it's close to Christmas.
Uh-huh.
But that Thursday after next,
Yeah.
I'd love to have you on. I want to, and if I don't get you, then I'll tell the listening audience when we're going to have you, because we're going to have you back.
Sure.
It's a thrill to have you on our show.
Thank you.
And well, it's just a thrill to have you in the community. You've been here 2 years, you said?
Yes, sir.
And it sounds like you've been very active in ministry, and I'm sure, what I've heard about you, I know you're active here and got things on the go, and
Praise God.
and
Thanks.
as well, you're a friend of our pastor, and that always is a good thing too.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
So-
he and I preached in a program together.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that. So, but all in all, I'm just, like I said, we're just thrilled that we were able to have you tonight,
Thank you.
and we look forward to getting the rest of the story.
All right.
We will pick it up Thursday after next.
All
Baby,
right.
I don't know. I didn't have